Tavis, somebody send up the bat signal.
There you go.
There you go. I heard my name mentioned a few times recently on Open Booster's video and Edwin's video. Hello everybody. We want to actually discuss the beta sheets today and how some very peculiar situations can actually happen. So, Open Boosters and Edwin were asking some questions in their videos, and they mentioned my name a few times because they knew I'd know the answer. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We're just going to answer some of their questions, and I thought all of you might want to watch and maybe learn something too. So let's get to it.
But,
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Except it's not.
Yeah, because if you haven't watched his last beta opening, stop this video, go watch it, and then come back to this. I'll wait.
All right.
Oh right, if you haven't seen Open Booster's video yet and you don't want it to be spoiled, definitely go check that out. I'll include a link to the video here to make it easy for you to find. Otherwise, stay tuned. Here's what happened.
Another swamp!
Wow, 3 in 1 pack.
Yeah, I know. Did we get one of each? We did.
I think this is a repeat, isn't
No,
it?
it's not.
No, it isn't. Okay, you're right.
One of each.
But 4 in 1 pack? That's crazy.
I know. It's the craziness. It's the craziness of it all. Well, we have a sheet. We probably all figured out.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the sheet we're going to be using today. This is a digital recreation of the beta common sheet. Let's get started. So the first card in the pack is a swamp, basic land. Now that appears on the sheet multiple times, so we don't actually know where we're at on the sheet yet. So going by the artwork here, I've marked all the possibilities that this card could be. There's 3 of them here. You'll see them marked in magenta. It's kind of a pink color there. And we could be in any of those positions. But the next card will tell us really where we're at on the sheet. Okay, the next card is a fog. That's in the bottom left corner down there. Alright, so that means that the swamp that we just got on the previous card is the card in the top left corner. Okay, but that's not the top left corner of this sheet. It's actually the top left corner of the previous sheet that was cut. It's down below the fog. So I'm using the same colors in this video that I did in the previous collation videos. If you enjoy this kind of content, you might want to check out my playlist on card collation. Okay, on to the next card. It is an island. There we go. I'm just going to keep marking them here on the sheet as they pop up. Holy Strength, Raise Dead, Disenchant, Swamp, Plains, Pestilence, Pearled Unicorn, and Swamp.
Alright, here we go. We're probably in the uncommon section pretty soon.
Let me just slide these commons over here out of the way and pop up the uncommon sheet. Alright, and the first card is Control Magic, followed by Swamp, and then Camouflage. You see Camouflage there is at the bottom left of the sheet, down in the corner. Again, that's not off this same sheet. It's on the next sheet that was cut. It's above the swamp. So there you go. That's how you get all 3 artworks of a basic land, swamp in this instance, all in the same booster pack. It's not a mistake or an error. It's just a normal part of the factory process here, as we've shown on the sheets, but it is pretty unusual. It's rare for this to happen. So the commons were from 2 different sheets, and the uncommons were from 2 different sheets, and the rare was also on its own sheet, so this pack had cards from 5 different sheets inside. Edwin and Open Boosters made another video on Edwin's channel trying to figure out how this happened, if it was a mistake or if it was a legit, factory thing. And I'll put a link here so you can watch their video. You can go see whether he got the right answer or not.
We tried to pull a Tavis and figure it out.
Yeah, this was our best attempt to channel Tavis. I needed the glasses and do the whole hair and everything if I really want to channel it.
You can get halfway there.
Okay, we'll do that.
Now, make sure you talk like him.
Hello, everybody. We want to actually discuss the beta sheet today and how some very peculiar different situations can actually happen.
Wish I could have been there with you guys. But that wasn't the only question that they had. What about that rare?
We have one more
The
card.
rare's got to be Cormus Bell, right?
Oh yeah, probably. Oop. Or Sedge Troll.
It's Sedge Troll.
It's Sedge Troll, everybody, because I dropped the card. I knew it was going to slip out of my fingers, too.
So we got one more uncommon to reveal.
Didn't we already get a Sedge Troll? Didn't we already pull him out of this box, or am I just thinking things?
That's a good question, because I kind of thought I remembered him also. You pulled one when we were at Vegas or something, right?
Yeah, but was that when I was opening the box, or not?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing as you. I could swear I remember seeing you pull a Sedge Troll out of a beta pack.
I could have sworn I pulled a Sedge Troll out of that beta pack.
Yeah.
Out of the beta box. So one of you is going to have to go review all my videos.
Yeah, somebody on the internet will.
I'm sure. Because to me, I've already pulled this card. Did I open a Sedge Troll before? Or did I not? That is the question.
Dun, dun, dun.
Who will figure it out? Do you have any more comments?
I really want to know about the Sedge Troll now.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. That's all I can think about now.
You and I both had the same thought.
Yeah.
I've already opened a Sedge Troll.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay, we'll find out.
All right, we'll find out.
Has Open Boosters already opened a Sedge Troll from this booster box? We'll find out today. When we last left our heroes, they had just opened a Black Lotus and a Will-o'-the-Wisp. Okay, the best way to handle this, I think, is to just pull up the beta rare sheet where I mapped the sheet for this box previously. That's in one of my other videos. Feel free to go back and check that out. It's in my Collation playlist. So here we are. For those of you who didn't see that video, this is the digital copy of the beta sheet. And it is color-coded and all kinds of fancy things like that. So the red X's, those are cards that we're not going to get in this box. The blue outlined cards, those are cards that we are going to get in the box, but hadn't been opened yet at this point. The green outlined cards, that's cards that we've already opened. And the two pink outlined cards, they're right here, these two. Those two cards, we don't know exactly whether we're going to get which one of them. So it could be the Plateau, or it could be the Enchantress. We're just not sure. We won't know till we open it. Okay, so that's what this is all about. And this is where we left off. And I'm just going to update this as we go. All right, so the next thing that they opened after the Lotus and the Will-o'-the-Wisp is the Mox Emerald. Bam, there we go. Now it's outlined in green. Then they opened a Nightmare, and then a Web, then a Two-Headed Giant, Clockwork Beast, Savannah, Cormu Bell, Mox Jet, Island, and recently a Sedge Troll. That is the only Sedge Troll they have opened in this box. By the way, the number labeling on some of Open Booster's videos for this box got a little out of whack after the Lotus, and so the next video should be pack number 27. I guess take note of that, Open Boosters, or count the number of packs left in your box. something like that. Looks like there's still a few cards left here that are outlined in blue. We'll see those in some order. And hopefully we'll find out whether we get that Enchantress or the Plateau. I'm really hoping for that Plateau.
But I thought we opened a Sedge Troll already.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. I'm not sure. Got to go back and look. But that would be really weird because everything else has been on the print sheet.
Exactly, right? Where's Sedge Troll anyways?
You know, honestly, that could be good. Because if you suddenly were off the print sheet, that could mean one of the other packs is something else.
Maybe it's the universe saying, you're going to get another Black Lotus. Here is Sedge Troll. Boom! So if we're off the print sheet, it really won't matter because we'll just go across to here. Well, let me back it up. Back up the truck. There is Sedge Troll. There's the thing. So we would go over here.
Okay, so there's no evidence of any kind of factory error in this box or anything like that. But mistakes can happen. So let's talk about that for a minute. So there's a few different ways that mistakes can happen, and each one looks a little different if you know what to look for. Okay, so one of the mistakes that could possibly happen is, let's say that two rare sheets got stuck together and went through the cutter at the same time. When that happens, you get duplicate rares in your box. Now that could also happen with commons or uncommons, but I'm just going to focus on rares here. So basically, in your box of 36 packs, you would get 18 rares. You'd get 2 copies of each of those. Now, obviously, that's not happening in this box. We've opened enough of the box to see that. Okay, what else could go wrong? Another thing that could happen is that when the sorting machine is filling the packs, it could maybe accidentally stick too many cards in a pack, or not enough cards in a pack. Let's go with too many cards first. So let's say it puts too many cards in a pack. Now we're focused on rares here. So let's say you get a pack that has 16 cards instead of 15. Alright, you got an extra rare. That'd be awesome. We haven't seen any evidence of that yet in this box. It could happen. It's not very likely, but it's possible. Okay, now let's say that the machine gives you not enough cards. Let's say it skips your rare. So you get a pack with 14 cards, there's no rare. Bummer. In that case, we'd have one less rare. Basically, that rare that didn't go into the pack, it's going to go in the next pack. So it doesn't change the order. But it does change which card you get, because you're going to get 35 cards instead of 36 cards for rares. Now, the rares, they're all in a particular order, and you're not going to just be missing a card in the row. If you have 35 rares instead of 36, the one you're not going to get is the one at the end, not the one in the middle. If that were to happen, the card that would be missing in this box would be one of the cards that we don't know what it is yet. There's one card we don't know what it is. It's either an Enchantress or a Plateau. If we were missing a rare in the box for some reason, if there was a pack that only had 14 cards, that's what would be missing. We've seen enough of the other cards to know that there's no gaps in the order. If there was a gap in the order, then we would have either not received the Black Lotus or not received the Illusionary Mask, because those are the 2 cards at the opposite ends of the row of cards here for this box. So it looks like there's a pretty good chance all the booster packs in this box have 15 cards. That's good news, right? Okay, what else could go wrong? Let's say that when the sorting troughs were put into the machine, let's say they accidentally put a trough full of uncommons into the rare sorting slot. That would be pretty bad for someone. It means all of their rare cards are going to be uncommons instead of rares. Now, we've seen enough booster packs in this box, we've seen enough opened, that we're pretty sure that's not happening here, because we have a lot of rares. And they're in sequential order. So the same thing is going to happen in that situation. The only pack which could be affected by that happening in this box is the one pack where we don't know what the rare is yet. Because all of the other rares are in sequential order. So pretty much anything that's in that sequential order for this box that's in between the lotus and the illusionary mask, it's locked in. Like, it's in the box. Now, let's see, getting even wilder here. So just maybe you could say that when the box was getting filled full of packs at the factory, the box spilled and the worker put the packs back into the box wrong. So maybe there's a pack that should have been in another box. That's getting pretty far out there. But sure, if that happened, then in that case, maybe one of the sequential packs in the middle that we haven't seen opened yet could possibly be something else. Pretty unlikely. Don't hold your breath, but it's possible. What else could happen? Let's say that individual cards fell out of a trough before going into the sorting machine, and the worker picked them up off the floor and just shoved them back in the trough somewhere, not necessarily in order. That's a very similar situation to putting the wrong rarity of card in the trough. Basically, you have a situation where the cards are in the trough in the wrong spot, and because of what we've seen here, all of our cards that are in sequential order are going to not be affected. We know that that didn't happen in between those cards. So the only card in the box that's not in between those cards is our mystery card from the pack that we don't know what the rare is yet. Anything else? At the moment, that's all I'm thinking of for possible mistakes. So we're pretty sure that there's not any mistakes in this box, factory errors, and if there is, there's a decent chance it would affect the one pack we haven't seen yet and not the other cards. Well, in this box that we're in, we know that we have this one unknown card, so in the wild case of an error, that one card could be something other than what's expected. Maybe it could have been a double Sedge troll. Sure. Not likely, but possible. But in that case, we couldn't have any other card in addition to the Sedge troll that's wrong because we've used up all of our spaces. There's no more packs in the box. Okay, so let's talk about a different box for a minute. Let's say that, theoretically we had multiple packs with unknown cards in them that were beyond the known sequence of cards in the box, and that if a mistake happened, it could affect more than one pack. That's not true for this box, but it's certainly possible for a lot of other boxes. Okay, so if you got a double Sedge troll, or even a Sedge troll when it wasn't in your sequence and it wasn't supposed to be in the box, what cards would you be most likely to get in addition to the Sedge troll? So this question is basically about what cards appear next to Sedge troll. Like always. Even if it were in sequential order, what cards show up next to Sedge troll? And the answer to that is here. Okay? The cards which are still on the screen, those cards could appear next to a Sedge troll. Most of those would appear after a Sedge troll. A couple of them would appear before a Sedge troll. They don't all have equal probability of showing up because some of those have multiple possible ways that they can appear next to a Sedge troll, and some of them don't. So you're most likely to get a Mox Jet or an Island next to a Sedge troll, and you're less likely to get the other ones. Just wanted to touch on that real quick. Again, there's no noticeable errors in this box yet, but since we were speculating, I thought it would be interesting to throw that out there.
It's got a hickey, too.
I'm sorry, what?
The hickey, right there. Your thumb's covering it up.
Oh, yes, okay.
I think Tavis called those a hickey. Little print dot.
Oh. Well, the hickey, that's what we're calling these things now?
I think that's what they're called.
Yep, that's what it's called. Hickey is actually a technical term in the printing industry. But just so that you don't have to take my word for it, let's check Google. Here we go. Any print defect caused by a particle either of paper or other source of debris attaching itself to the printing plate, blanket, gravure, cylinder, or other image-carrying surface. And then it goes on to say there's different types of hickeys, depending on what makes it or what shape they are, if you want to classify them. But just calling it a hickey is sufficient. It is what it is. Here's another one. Pre-pressure. Yeah, it looks like pre-pressure, but it's a kind of a pun. It's pre-press is the work that you do before you print something. Okay, so hickey is a small spot or imperfection that appears in print on images or flat tints, sometimes called a bullseye or a fisheye, etc., etc. You can pause the screen and read it if you want. Here's another one. Printing Industry Midwest, Glossary of Print Terms. Starts with A, goes on down. We'll just go on down to hickey here. All right, here we go. In offset lithography, spots or imperfections in the printing due to dirt on the press, dried inkskin, paper particles, etc. Spots wasn't really a good word to use here because spots has a specific definition that's elsewhere in this, but you get the idea. Okay, let's see if we can recreate one, just to get a better idea of how they happen. So the way printing typically works is that you have the ink rollers. This is a very crude example here. You have the ink rollers that supply the ink, and then you have the printing plate, which has the engraven image. So the rollers with the ink contacts the plate, gets the ink onto the plate, then the plate rolls up against the print blanket, which is kind of a squishy surface, like a foam rubber kind of a stuff. So that transfers the ink from the plate to the blanket, and then the blanket rolls across the paper or cardstock, whatever you're using, to transfer the ink onto that. Now, if you just went straight from the plate to the paper, you get a reversed image. You also might wear out the plate faster or damage the paper because the plate is metal, which needs to be pretty durable for a high volume of printing. So, without getting into too many technical details, that's pretty much the way it goes. So, I don't need to print an image, so I'm just going to skip this step. I don't need the plate. I'm just going to print, we'll say, a solid square shape. I'm going to ink this, stick it on the page. So let's see if this ink is any good. Let's hope so. Okay. So here we go. We'll see if we can pick up some ink. Did we pick any up? I don't know. It's really hard to tell with this foam. Maybe this foam isn't receptive to ink. Or the ink could be dry. All right, let's see what happens. Okay. Not perfect. Either I didn't have ink in the middle, or perhaps the stamp is not flat. Let me try. Let's see if I can get ink in the middle. Doesn't look like it. The stamp is probably not flat, just a piece of wood that I glued some foam onto. Alright, so we can see that a part of the stamp is working, so I'm going to focus on that. So what we have here is a piece of debris. It's just a little wood chip from when I was cutting the hunk of wood off. So we're going to fasten that onto the blanket. Now normally debris in the print facility would be something like a piece of cardstock or something like that. It could just be, dust. It could be anything. and it would stick to the ink because printing ink is kind of thick and waxy like paint, unlike this, which is pretty thin. So let me stick this on here. Be right back. Oh, hey, I just remembered. I actually have some offset press printing ink that I can show you. So this is black ink that would be like what they use to print magic cards. It's super thick, like it's like really thick paint. It's almost like a paste. So it's just a small little thing of it here, but that's what it is. And that super thick stuff, it actually goes between a few different rollers, which works it and gets it sort of a little more viscous. It's like it softens it up, and it gets any air bubbles and chunks out before it's used. But all right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. All right, we now have a piece of debris stuck to our printing blanket. So we're going to ink it. And then we're going to stamp it down here. There we go. We've created a printer Hickey. So what you get here is the debris is inked, and it leaves a spot of ink in the shape of the debris in the center of the Hickey. And then, because of the height difference, I don't know if you can see the height difference, but there we go. So there's a height difference between the surface of the Hickey and the surface of the blanket. And that height difference creates this void space around the center dot. That's because the blanket is flexible. So then you get, normal printing around it. Now that white color is white because the paper is white. Normally in 4-color printing you have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which would be blue, red, yellow, and black, in layman terms. So you might see other colors besides white there. Maybe you'd see blue within that spot, and it would look like a blue Hickey, but it's actually on the red layer because this is red ink. So there you go. That's how Hickeys are made. Little science experiment. Hickeys don't affect the entire print run, but they do keep occurring as long as the debris is stuck in place. Every print facility has its own quality control guidelines on how long a printer Hickey can appear in a run before they're required to shut down the machine and manually clean it. But most of the time it just comes loose on its own and falls off who knows where. Probably travels on the sheet down the row and gets put in a pack, Okay, so that was a Hickey. What is a print dot? That's a different thing. I know a lot of people call Hickeys print dots, but a dot is actually something else. So let's look up dot. Here we are in the glossary. Scroll down to D here. Dot, the individual element of a halftone. In other words, it's like a dot of ink. That's not a void, it's the opposite. It's a dot. Now, it's not a dot where debris is, accidentally. It's a dot that's intentionally placed. Probably the easiest thing to do would be just to show you. All right, so here is, there we go, my USB microscope. Nifty tool. Let me, a little bit of ink on my hands here. let me grab something to put under it. Just a second. Okay, we have here a signed beta juggernaut. We will shove that underneath the microscope. All right, here we go. Guess we'll look at the name so you can see it's a juggernaut. There we go. Good old jug. All right, so you see those black dots that are inside the white letters? That's what makes the white lettering look gray. It's actually kind of gray lettering. So the white space between the black dots is unprinted cardstock, and you make that look gray by scattering black dots across it. I'm going to move over to the casting cost for a minute. Difficult to get that centered. There we go. That's pretty close. Is my focus okay? Maybe that's a little better. Okay, so you can see that there's a grid of dots. Here, maybe it would help if I rotated it. All right. Now the dots, the rows run horizontal and vertical. Maybe that's a little easier for you to see. Okay, so each of those black dots is a dot. That's actually what a print dot is. It's a dot of ink that's intentionally placed in the grid. A spot is something else. A spot is the space that the dot would go in, more or less. That's kind of a simplification. This is a halftone grid. Halftone meaning it's not continuous tone. Continuous tone blends colors smoothly, transitions, like in a painting, for example, where you actually blend the colors together. And this is halftone, meaning that the picture is made up of dots. Rather than a continuous blending, you create the illusion of blending by having less dots or smaller dots. So all of the spots where a dot could be in the grid may not necessarily have a dot. And they may not have the same size of dot, at least in conventional halftone. A series of spots makes up a halftone cell, and depending on how many spots are occupied or full within the cell, that determines the shape and size of your dot. Ideally, a halftone cell would be 16 spots wide by 16 spots tall. 16 by 16 is 256, so you get 256 different tones of color, depending on how many of those spots are occupied by the dot. Now, in a space that's not supposed to have that color, you might have none of the spots occupied by the dot. It can just be an empty space. That's probably getting a little more technical than what we really need to get into here. But the important thing here is that a dot is a dot of ink. So a print dot is one of these many dots that you see here. And a hickey is an unintentional misprint. It's an error. It's a really common error. So don't expect high value for a printer hickey. Usually they're very small and not very valuable, and they're pretty common on older sets. Okay, let's go back to the glossary here for a minute. A couple more print terms that might be useful to go over. Let's look at AM/FM screening. That's not a radio station. That has to do with the two different types of how to make the grids of dots. So the traditional printing, commonly called halftone, but actually both types are halftone because they're both made of dots. Traditional printing, you have this line above it, AM, which is amplitude modulation. That's where all of your dots are equally spaced. They're in a grid, but the size of the dots changes to vary the blending or the intensity of color, the fade from one to another. You adjust that by changing the size of your dots. So if you want to fade to a lighter color, your dots get smaller. The other option is FM screening, which is frequency modulation, and that is also known as stochastic, and this is how alternate 4th edition is printed. That uses the same size of dots everywhere, but varies the space between the dots. So a more solid color would have a higher number of dots in that area, and when you fade to a lighter color, you use less dots, not smaller dots. Okay, that's kind of off topic for what we were discussing here in this video, but I had the glossary up and I wanted to mention it. So if you know what alternate 4th edition is, there's a little bit more alternate 4th edition info for you.
Did that artist do any other cards?
You know, I have absolutely no idea.
It's because I don't even honestly recognize that name too much, so this might have been his only card?
Maybe.
Yeah, see, there we go. Tavis!
Cornelius Broody did do other cards for Magic. Within Alpha, he did Pearl Unicorn and Wanderlust, and then he did 7 more cards for Ice Age, for a total of 9 different artworks. And that's not counting times that those cards were reprinted in other sets, because that was the same artwork. The card he'd probably be most well known for is Plateau in Revised. Now that was originally an Ice Age artwork. It wasn't printed in Ice Age. So the Alpha artwork showed up in late 92, early 93 and was put on the Alpha cards. The artwork for Ice Age, for an early version of Ice Age, started being commissioned in May of 93. Now that version of Ice Age was actually shelved. And they came back to it later and turned it into the Ice Age set that we know, which was released in 95. So originally, the early version of Ice Age was going to have dual lands, because Alpha hadn't even been released yet at that point, and dual lands were cool. So they were okay having them in the set, and this Plateau artwork was originally done for the first version of Ice Age. Since that didn't happen, and they needed artwork for the revised version, they went ahead and took that artwork and put it in Revised. He is unfortunately not credited. The artist credit is misattributed on that card. Bummer. So the only artist in Alpha that only had a single artwork was Faye Jones. She did Stasis. There are a total of 29 different artists who have only done a single piece of artwork for Magic. After Faye Jones, it was Kristen Bishop. She did, I think it was War Mammoth and Arabian Nights. And then after that it was Michael Whalen, who did Nalathni Dragon, the promo card for Dragon Con in 94. Everyone else is after that.
You do that really well.
Too much time hanging around him. We love you, Tavis.
Alright, Edwin's gone, but I noticed this. The bottom of the Holy Strength. That is insane. Alright, look at that damage. Craziness. I figured y'all be interested in that. That's just nuts. I mean, that looks good, and then there's that. What kind of misprint is that?
Well, it's difficult to say exactly, but it looks like something scraped the card while the ink was wet. It's kind of hard to see it through the card saver. I don't think it's worth a ton of money, but it obviously is factory. If it had happened After the card left the factory, the ink would still be on the card. I guess that's it for this question and answer session. I hope everyone here learned something. I hope that helps you, Edwin and Open Boosters. And I'll catch you next time.